And I'm here today with Anne Gordon de Barrigon. And Anne is going to tell us a little bit about when did you come to Panama? How did you come to live in Panama? And where were you from?
I'm originally from the Seattle area, and I used to work in the film industry. I trained animals for movies and television, and I came here working on a film that hired the Embera people as the actors. So I got to spend a lot of time with them on the movie set, and just was really touched with how warm and open and friendly they are. And then, as fate would have it, I ended up marrying one of them. So that was January 2004. So quite a while ago, and I went home a couple times and then came back, and by the end of that year I was living here full time.
For any of our listeners that don't know, who are the Embera people?
The Embera are an indigenous tribe here in Panama. There are 7 different unique indigenous groups here, and they're one of the 7, and most of them live in the Barrigon province, which is down next to Colombia, and many of them still live in traditional villages out in the rainforest.
So when you came here, you were working on the movie, you met and fell in love with one of the actors, one of the village men. Did you speak Spanish? I'm sure you didn't speak Embera. And did he speak English? How did you communicate with each other?
When I first met my husband, I did not speak Spanish. I had it in high school, but that was a long time ago, so I had to basically relearn, but it helped because I knew how it was supposed to work. Yes, that tribe has its own language, which doesn't sound like anything that we know, so I didn't speak that, and my husband did not speak any English. So it was a bit of a challenge. Our first few dates were with a Spanish-English dictionary between us. But I picked up Spanish pretty fast. It was the complete immersion method, and that's how we still communicate, is in Spanish. He's learned some English, and I've learned some Embera as well.
Okay, so you guys were highly motivated, I see.
Yes, highly motivated for sure.
So you moved here almost 11 years ago, and did you have a job? I mean, you came to work on the film, but when you came back and you married your husband, did you have an income? Was he working? How did that?
My husband lived in the village, and they survive on tourism, tour groups that come out there. It doesn't pay very much. So, and it was at that time very, very sporadic. So no, he didn't really have an income. Certainly not one that could support us both. And so when I first came here, I knew that the film industry was not an option because there's really so little of that here. And when I was in the village with him, I'd see the few tours come out to the village, and watching the tour guides, which were great, they were really good. However, sometimes they had a thick Spanish accent, and even though they did speak English, and as Panamanians, they didn't have a foreigner's perspective on the village, which I had, and then they also did not have the insider Embera perspective, which through marriage and spending so much time with them, I had that. So as I watched the tours, I thought, well, I could be a tour guide, I could do that. And so I started out freelance for the first year, working for other tour companies. And that was okay, but not great for a source of income. And so after about a year, I decided to put up a website and see what would happen. So I built my own website, and I put it up, and within a week we actually got our first requests for a tour. But I also got really lucky. I got a good domain name, because most of the tour companies in Panama have generic, Panama tours, whatever, because they do all kinds of tours. Mm-hmm. We were focusing strictly on the Embera at the time. So EmberaVillageTours.com says it all, and if you do any research on what to do in Panama, you will find the Embera tour. And then if you Google that, we actually come up number 1.
But you had never, previous to moving here, you'd never been a tour guide or did anything like that?
I'd never been a tour guide. I never was even interested in tourism. I'd never built a website. Yes, I had owned my own company before. I had done that. But as far as tourism, no, it was all new.
So what was the process of setting up a business in Panama like for a foreigner? Was it difficult? What did you have to do?
It's what I did is I actually came in on a type of visa that actually doesn't allow you to work a regular job, but you can own a corporation. So we did form a corporation, and it did help that I had a Panamanian husband.
In Panama, you mean?
In Panama, we formed a corporation, which is not hard to do in this country. Mm-hmm. Anybody can. But the tricky part for me is that a tour operator's license with ATP, which is the tourism authority here in Panama, they do not allow foreigners to own a tour company. It must be a Panamanian. So being married to a Panamanian, that solved that problem. So that made it easy. There are ways to do it. If you have a board of directors and you have somebody on your board who is Panamanian, you could do that. But you have to make sure that you have a Panamanian as the name, the CEO or whatever on the corporation, so that the tourism authority approves that.
So how did you know how all of these steps that you had to take? Did you just consult a lawyer and have them walk you through it, or did you kind of wing it?
We winged it. We didn't do it right to begin with. We just put up a website and started doing business and didn't realize we had to have a license. So then we kind of backtracked and did the corporation, did the tourism authority, and basically we just asked the ATP what we needed, and they have a whole form with all the list of requirements, and they're very friendly and walk you through it, say this is what you need. Yes, and you do. Then we did hire a lawyer at that point to do you have to have a lawyer do a corporation here. So, and then she also helped with ATP.
Okay, so you've been here for several years doing this now. As far as opportunities for other people that might be thinking about moving here and they're not retired, they need to do something to earn an income. Is tourism, in your mind, is it growing in Panama? Is there still a lot of room for other businesses to come in and do things?
Yeah, tourism here is definitely growing. There's a lot. If someone coming in and wants to work in tourism, you have to be able to think outside the box, or you have to be able to be a little adventurous to get things done, because getting things done here in Panama can be at a snail's pace and a bit frustrating. So you just have to be patient and be persistent. And if you come up with a niche that nobody was doing, yes, that people were doing Embera, but nobody had it with my unique standing with the tribe. But my other business is whale watching tours here. And when I started those, nobody was offering whale watching tours in the country. In fact, most Panamanians had no idea we had whales. And when I would explain that I took whale watching tours, they'd say, "We have whales? Aren't they dangerous fish?" Well, they're not dangerous and they're not fish. And yes, we have plenty of whales. So really, it was an open market that I've developed. And I saw an open opportunity and just stepped into it. So if someone is adventurous and very entrepreneurial and sees something that doesn't exist here or there's very little of, yes, you can absolutely start a business and get it up and running. The hotels, there's kind of a glut on hotels now. That has been filled. But like real good eco resorts, ecotourism, really unique, fun adventures, things to do, new kinds of tours, absolutely.
Yeah, because I would think you talk with your passengers that come I got to go on your tour today, which was amazing. And, you're talking to these people all the time on a regular basis. I'm sure they're telling you what kinds of things they would like to do. So you get an idea from the tourists that come on your tours, what are the things they're looking for. What kind of things do they tell you about? Do they say stuff like that to you?
Well, actually, they don't talk much about what they're looking for. There's very little that, in that way, what they usually do is come, and what most people don't realize about Panama is there's more than a canal. Most people only think we have a canal and nothing else. They don't realize we have this huge metropolis city that, with all the restaurants and modern amenities, but what I hear a lot is they did not realize how much there was to see and do here. Different areas, the mountains, the beaches, the cities, indigenous, cultural, etc., besides the canal. So most people comment they didn't spend enough time on their vacation year to be able to do everything they wanted to do. But there are ways to come up with some fun, interesting business ideas that complement what's already here.
Okay.
Like I just heard there's a guy in Bocas del Toro that invented this clear, it's almost like a board you'd use when you would do laps in the pool to just do kicking, but it's clear and you hang on to it and he tows it behind a boat. So you can put a mask on, do it, and go down, and the board doesn't block your view from the coral and the fish below.
Oh.
And he created that. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. And I thought, what a brilliant idea.
Okay, another question for you. Being a foreigner here and setting up a business, did you have any resistance or negative feedback from locals that might think you're competing with them? Or how was the relationship with Panamanians, you being a foreigner and setting up a business in the country here? Was there anything?
I haven't had any problems with locals resenting my business. Yes, I did kind of compete a bit with some of the other tour companies who did Embera tours, but I didn't really see them. It wasn't like a face-to-face competition. And by working freelance, I knew a lot of the freelance tour guides in the country and had a good relationship with them. And everybody saw my dedication and my respect and how much I honor the Embera and how much I'm willing to, it's like some tour companies will bargain down the cheapest price possible, and I refuse to do that. And we also donate back 10% to their education fund. So most of the other people understand and respect that I respect them so much, so it's not a problem. And again, with whale watching, nobody was doing it, so that wasn't an issue. I wasn't stepping on anybody's toes.
And I know, because I've heard you talk about it before, that one of the kind of niche parts of your tour business is that you practice sustainable tourism too. So I don't know how big that is here in Panama, but I think a lot of the guests that come here, that probably means a lot.
Yeah, it's sustainable, responsible tourism is big to the consumer, to the clientele. Here in Panama, it's just starting to be in the awareness of people. But yes, it's something that when you're responsible, respectful, sustainable, it means a lot to your clients. And this is an environment here in Panama where the whole idea of taking care of the environment, not littering, recycling is just in its infancy here. People are just starting to be introduced to those concepts. So it's really important to set a really high quality level example, because we are guests in this country. This is not our country. So the last thing we want to do is come in and trash it, and that's the first way to get people upset with you. You're in their country and you have to honor their rules, their guidelines, and even take it up a bar so that hopefully it will teach the locals. And encourage them to do the same.
What about as far as, having your own business, having the corporation. I know what it's like back in the States and some of the reporting requirements and taxes and all of that. Is it comparable to the U.S.? Is it cheaper here to run a business?
It's cheaper here. Taxes are less. It is, there are certain taxes you got to pay and such, but it's not terribly difficult. And that's what you have your lawyer for. I helped you out with that, an accountant, all that good stuff. The one thing that foreigners do need to be aware of, U.S. expats coming to Panama, is that the U.S. does tax your world income. So any money that you make here has to be reported on your tax return. Although you do get a higher allowance, I think it's like $80,000 you can make before they'll tax it.
Yeah, we have, I work pretty closely with Diane Kennedy, who does a lot of international tax stuff, and I think that's actually up to about $92,000
Oh, good.
now, and if you're a couple, it's even higher. So we do get an exemption on that. And looking, you've seen the growth here over the past several years, people coming in. I understand with the expansion of the canal, we're going to be having more cruise ships, which will boost the tourism as well. Do you, just looking around and living here, do you see other things that, you think in the back of your mind, God, it would be really great if somebody started a business like that, or we could use this? And what are the opportunities like for somebody that might be an entrepreneur and thinking, what can I do in Panama?
Yeah, there are opportunities, and of course I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but yeah, absolutely, you do think of, somebody should do this, somebody should do that business. Absolutely. There are opportunities. You just have to be a creative thinker, and by living here, you'll see the gaps that exist, and customer service is not great here in Panama. So if somebody could work as a consultant teaching customer service. I had a friend who worked in the corporate world, and what she did is she spoke fluent Spanish, and she would teach foreign businesses how to deal with the culture here. So that, for example, she had a German real estate developer who's, they're very cut and dried and everything's all organized and laid out. And then you get the Panamanian laid back way, and then they've got to hire Panamanians to run their business. And so she teaches them how to work together. Which is a neat niche creation that she came up with.
Right. I can see how that would work. So, as a businesswoman and a foreigner living here in Panama, people that are maybe listening to this and thinking, I wish I could move there, but I'm going to need to work. I'm not retired. Would you say, yes, definitely come to Panama? This is a place to do it, lots of opportunity, or would you say, good luck, it's going to be hard?
What I would say is you need to be a real adventurous, independent spirit. You need to be able to blend in. You need to be able to learn Spanish. Some of the places will hype and say English is widespread. It's not. Most people do not speak English.
Right.
When you get to the doctors and lawyers, yes. But when you get to the everyday person, your mechanic, so on, the nurse at the doctor's office, the receptionist, not going to speak English. So you need to do that. So when you're going in as a business person, dealing with holding business meetings, it's got to be in Spanish. It takes a while. Or even just going to the hardware store to buy parts to build your store. You need to know how to ask for those parts. So, yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, but it's not impossible either. I wouldn't say it's super easy. And coming here to just work, like you want to just get a regular salary job, not possible here, unless you already have an in with that company and they will help you with the paperwork. But if you just come in, you have a skill, and you're trying to find a job, no, it's all Panamanian. Getting a work permit is not easy. It's better to do it as a corporation and do your own business somehow, some way. Depending on what that business is, you may need to have a requirement to hire a certain number of Panamanians. And you need to, there's very specific rules about that, and you can get burned really quickly if you don't realize that. Say, for example, you have to pay the 13th month. There's 12 months in the year, but if you have a full-time employee, you have to pay them a 13th month each year. Yep. 13th month. Absolutely.
What is the 13th month?
It's, I don't know, I don't think it has a name, but you do have to pay an extra month each year. It's like a bonus.
Really?
Yep. It's required. So you really got to do your research on all of that, and, shop around for a good lawyer and ask other expats, who have you used, what have your been success rates, because unfortunately in this country, foreigners are assumed wealthy, and they're sometimes easy targets. So you have to be really careful. Don't just go with the first person who says, yeah, I can do it, no problem, $300. And then $5,000 later and you still don't have what you need. You hear that story all the time.
I've heard that story too.
Yeah, you have to be very, very smart about it. And patience, getting things done. It's not a one-stop shop. Even DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles here, it took me 6 months to get I brought a car down to get my license plate switched from a California plate to a Panama plate. 6 months.
Wow.
And then you have to go to 5 different places and get this and get that. So you just have to take a deep breath, relax, smile, don't get mad, don't play that American game of I want to see the manager. That won't work here. That will get you nowhere, backwards out the door fast. So you have to swallow your frustration, be super nice, patient, and it'll get done eventually.
Well, obviously you have a lot of patience. You're a smart woman, and your businesses are doing fabulous. I was very impressed with the tour today. It was very professional. Everybody had a great time. I think we'll just close with, you came here, you met as native as you can really go of a man. I don't know how different you could be.
Right.
And you fell in love and you married him. What is the best thing? What would you say you love the most about the Embera people, and what was it that attracted you that made you want to come here?
It was funny because Panama was not on my radar. It was not something I ever thought about going to visit. I was one of those that only knew about the canal. So what I did was, the best thing for me is the quality of life the Embera people have. They're open, the children have so much freedom, there's always a lap to climb into, there's always support, yet they're allowed to be independent. And to me, that's the quality of life the rest of us are searching for. So for me, I feel it's a true honor and a blessing to have found them and to be a part of their family.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I think you're going to give a lot of people that are listening something to think about.
My pleasure.
Okay, and we'll say adios.
Ciao, bye-bye.